Well, what the parliamentary election results have shown us is that there really has been a shift in the vote away from the right and centre alliance, a traditional alliance that we would have been used to working with. However, that has now changed because we've seen from the ECR, EPP and ALDE, they've all lost votes. They've lost, in return, they have lost seats. Now, what that has meant is that for fringe parties, such as the non-attached, which is where the National Front is now aligned to, and also for the equivalent of the UKIPs across Europe, they have made significant gains. And that's something that we are going to have to look to work. How do we work with these groupings? How do we form alliances? And more to the point, how will they organise themselves, and will they be a disruptive force within the Parliament? Many feel at this stage that they won't be, because they won't be able to organise themselves or they will not participate. And that is true for many of the non-attached members, not just for what the commentators are currently saying about UKIP, for example. It applies across the board. I think one thing that has stepped out from it is that the Labour equivalent across Europe, the S&D, haven't fared too badly. I mean, they've dropped 9 seats overall, but when you compare that to the EPP, the Christian Democrat Party, they've lost 62 in total seats. So I think going forward, in terms of our approach in dealing with the Parliament, we're going to have to really have a pan-European, pan-party approach. As I said, the centre and centre-right alliance that we used to have with the EPP plus the ECR, we're going to have to look broader than that. The impact of the recent elections on the financial services sector is going to be difficult to tell in the short term until we first of all get a new commissioner in. That's going to determine whether we have really pushing through the growth agenda, or whether we're going to have a commissioner coming from a member state who's maybe perhaps a little bit more protectionist, or is coming from a more federalist mentality. These things will matter. In terms of the Parliament, we are seeing a tapering off of legislation coming from the European Commission. That means that the level 1 process in terms of new pieces of legislation coming through is slowing down a little, but we have 63 pieces of legislation currently going through the European supervisory authorities. That means there's a lot of legislation that member states and that stakeholders haven't even felt yet on the ground. And that is going to require time and patience on behalf of certainly the right legislators in order to step back and not bring out any more legislation until really we have absorbed the impact that that's truly going to have. From the point of view of the new pieces of legislation that the European Parliament will be dealing with, certainly the new Parliament is going to have going to bring about changes to money market funds. The scope of that could be brought into question given the fact that we've lost some of the lead rapporteurs. Similarly, on the benchmarks legislation, highly controversial at the moment. A lot is happening in terms of with the national legislators, be it BaFin or the FCA, but the proposal itself, given that Sharon Bowles has left and we've lost 1 or 2 of the other rapporteurs, the scope could be open for question again. Do we maintain the narrow approach that Sharon had prior to her election, or are we going to be looking at an expansion of the scope and supporting the Commission line that all benchmarks and indices should be included? Now, the next steps after this election, after the results, is that by the end of July, all of the parliamentary parties have to decide their groupings. What party are they going to be part of? Number of MEPs that they're going to have per committee, who's on what committee, who is going to be the chair of what committee, and who is going to be president and vice president of the Parliament. Big decisions to be made. That's all going to be done the end of June for the committees, and then the beginning of July in terms of all of the presidential posts, President of Parliament and Vice President of the Parliament. So we are going to see by the week of the 16th of July that the Parliament and the Council will have to have come to a decision on who is the new President of the Commission. After that, the horse trading will start as to what member state is getting what commissioner posts. We hope that that will be in place in September, with a view to the Commission the parliamentary hearings. So the MEPs will get to interview publicly at the public hearings each of the Commission candidates. The new Commissioner will then come into effect, take up the mandate 1st of November.